So we know that the elders and the elite of the world, of the illuminated Illuminati, are the ones that are death cult worshippers, making blood sacrifices, thus their obsession with necrophilia. And of course, our former president even belonged to the cult of the skull and bones, a clear symbol of the worship of death. And you'll find the skulls or the death cult worshippers in the Vatican. And you'll notice the butterfly above the crossbones. So now you know why the Order of Death keeps the skull of Mary Magdalene. And of course, the Freemasons tie into the Order of Death. And of course, the Knights Templars also represent the Order of Death. And of course, the Queen of England, or Anglin, is also a part of the Order of Death, which is exactly why the British use the flag that's called the Jolly Roger, which is the flag of the skull and crossbones, which came from the Jolly Rouge, or the Pretty Red, which was covered in blood. And of course, it is related to the bull of fornication, thus the stud bulls were commonly named Roger. And of course, the Order of Death can also be found in Satanism, which is exactly why it's all about death, and thus the reason that you will often find the human skull. And of course, occultists like Aleister Crowley also worship the skull, as well as the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And of course, the Illuminati Hollywood is part of the Order of Death, which is exactly why you'll find the skull in plenty of movies. And Christopher Lee is a knight of the Order of Death. Over the years, he has played everything from the Lord of the Wicker Man to the Sith Lord in Star Wars. And many of his roles deal with the devil and Satan, thus a movie he did called The Skull. And of course, he also played the vicious vampire.
You do not die, sir. I've already died.
Never been the heart's blood, the brains, the sword, our feet.
The vampire, the sword, the mist, and would you believe he actually played a Knights Templar?
Vampires do exist. This one we fight, this one we face. Can take on many forms. He is both young and old. He can appear as mist, as vapor, as the fog.
So vampires are known for drinking blood, and thus the Knights Templar are also known for blood. And would you believe that these blood knights are also known for the cup, the Holy Grail, which is a cup for drinking blood. So the bloodthirsty Knights Templars, the Slayers, are known to be associated with the Holy Grail, which is a cup that is associated with holding blood, the sacred blood of the bloodline. And the Holy Grail is a bowl or a vessel. And a vessel is related to the blood vessel, and thus the bowl is also related to the bull, because a bowl is a bull. And of course, the very etymology of the word blood is also associated with the bowl, because the bowl was used to capture the sacred blood of the bull, which is exactly why they want you to drink the Red Bull's blood. And you'll notice it carries the symbolism of the cross. And thus the torero, matador, bullfighter is the one or the master who can kill and slay the sacred blood of the bull. And you'll notice that this superhero is using none other than the sacred red cape, because the caped superhero is capable of capping a bull. So now you'll understand why the evil Father Pope, the head bull who wears a cape issues a papal bull as he holds the fertility fornication of the penis of the bull. And of course, once again, we have the theme of the vampires, the blood drinkers, which is exactly why these necrophilic priests are sitting above the grave of Jesus with the Holy Grail, the cup of fornication, which holds the sacred blood. Like the whore of Babylon who rides the beast bull as she holds her cup of fornication. And of course the book of Revelations talks about the color of purple, as well as dragons, and other various points that I'll be getting back to later. So these ancient rituals of blood drinking carry on to this very day, which is exactly why they want you to drink the blood and eat the flesh of the bloody victim. So if you're a Christian, you've been fooled to believe in a death cult, a religion that is based upon the ritualistic sacrifice, blood drinking, and flesh eating cult that it truly is. The ancient cults of blood ritual. So the bloodthirsty Knights Templar are associated with the red blood and the red bloody cup, as well as the Christian faith, and as well as the Catholic faith, which are all dealing with and focusing on drinking the sacred blood of the sacred cup. And I feel sorry for all of the poor innocent people out there who partake in these ancient blood rituals, yet have absolutely no idea what they're doing. So no matter how you try to paint the picture, you'll notice that they actually focus on Jesus and his sacrifice, which is the focus of his sacred blood, which is why the Bible is very clear that you shall drink his blood and eat his flesh. And Jesus is also associated with the sword or the spear. And would you believe he died at the place called Golgotha, the place of the skull? And when we take a look at the Satanic Order, we find it's the same exact story. So in other words, it's just another facet of the death cult. Which is why you find Anton LaVey, the high devil priest of Satanism, you'll see him with the sword, the skull, and yes, of course, the sacred Holy Grail, or the sacred cup of blood. So the Holy Grail, or the Sangreal, is the royal blood, the sacred cup, bowl, or glass of blood. Which of course is why the religion is focused on Mother Mary, the Virgin Bloody Mary. Thus you see her red bloody heart. You see Bloody Virgin Mary, her name means the red blood of Mars, or March, which is named after the red bloody planet and the red bloody god of war. So that's why Bloody Mary had a little lamb in the springtime of March. And that's exactly why we have a drink that's called the Bloody Mary. And I'm sure you have heard of the ancient African cult called Santeria, which is a blood ritualistic cult that is based on sacrificing. And of course, once again, we find the ritualistic color of purple. And we also find the skull, and the skull of the bull. And remember that the meaning of the Holy Grail means the holy bowl, or the holy cup that holds the sacred blood in the bowl. Which is why Santeria is entirely based upon ritualistic magic and sacrificing the blood inside of the sacred bowl. So the sacred blood of Santeria is the same ritualistic bowl of sacrifice as the Holy Grail, or the holy bowl that holds the sacred blood. And of course, Santeria also has the goddess that holds the sacred Holy Grail. And of course, she's dressed in blood red. And the holy bowl, or the holy grail, or the cup of sacrifice is exactly the same thing as when you place money in a bowl as a tip or as a sacrificial offering. You see, because the money represents your hard work, which represents your blood, sweat, and tears. So this is exactly why we take our hard-earned money that represents our blood, sweat, and we throw it into the pond, which is a bowl. And of course, it's full of water that represents the sacred blood. So you're making a sacrificial offering to the God, thus the reason that you ask for a wish. And when you go to church, you'll realize that you're making an offering in the sacred bowl or the holy grail. So it really makes me sick to see these religions taking the hard-earned money and using the innocence of the people to fool them like TV evangelists. I mean, I'll never forget how depressed my aunt was when she found out that all of the multi-thousands of dollars that she had been sending in over the years was all in vain. She wasn't giving money to the Lord. She was giving money to the evil ones, who fooled and used her like they've done to countless innocent people. So the Holy Grail, or the Sangreal, is nothing but the symbolic representation of the sacred royal blood. So the sangreal, or the sacred blood, is the same exact thing as Santeria, the blood ritual, which is exactly why a bowl full of blood is known as sangria, the drink of the royal red blood. And when we look at the Santeria religion, we find that they believe in one God, Olodumare, who passed on the divine powers to the 9 gods. You see, the number 9 is very ancient and sacred, which is why there were 9 ancient Egyptian gods. And in Greek mythology, we have the 9 muses. And in the pagan Germanic Norse mythology, we have the god Odin, who of course is related to the sacred number of 9. And this is why Old Father Odin, or Santa Claus, rides the 8 reindeer, and he is number 9. And of course Christmas is really Saturnalia, which is the worship of the god Saturn, or Santa, which is exactly why Saturn L rides the sleigh. And of course, Saturn is known as Saturn 9. And of course, in the Illuminati Hollywood world of movies and film and fantasy, you will often find the number 9. You see, in the occult belief, there were 9 unknown ones, or the 9 masters, which is why in a witch's coven, there is 13 or 9 members. This is why the Supreme Court members total 9. This is why the Rockefellers have the 9 trustees. And of course, Disney has what was known as the original 9 old men. You can also find the 9 gods in many religions like the Aztec religion or the Hindu religion, as well as the Chinese religion. And then we have the Beatles' Revolution, number 9.
Number 9.
And 9 represents the last number, or the death of numbers. And of course, Jesus was killed during the 9th hour. And thus, the 9 represents the 9 lives, which is exactly why we have Cloud 9. And when you get old, you can collect Social Security, which is why it has 9 numbers. So now you know why the game of golf ends on the 9th hole. And the tarot card number 9 is the Hermit, old Saturn L, who carries the torch to the underworld. And this is why Katy Perry is showing you the secret hidden number of 9 as she goes to the underworld. And by the way, the atomic number of fluoride is none other than the number of 9, or the number of death.